Want to take a shower with Mitch? Hey Siri, play Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
I couldn't find Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon in your music.
Ugh, she never works. Direct from Montreal, Canada, this is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on the phone, it is not one, but two quick interviews. First up, from the We Will Rock You musical, it is Galileo, better known as actor Trevor Coll. If you haven't had a chance to see the We Will Rock You musical, you must. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. And on the other side of that, we have got from the band Theory Of A Deadman, now known as Theory. Currently on tour, it is a drummer, Joey Dandeneau. New album is Say Nothing. And, well, listen, on that, I'm just going to get right to these interviews. We've got a lot of content. I don't want to add more to it. You don't want to overstuff the burrito. So here we are. Without further ado, it is the one, the only, We Will Rock You cast member, Trevor Coll. We are speaking with We Will Rock You's Trevor Coll. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Good. And bienvenue to Montreal, as they say. Welcome to our fair city.
Merci. It's beautiful. I love Montreal. I grew up coming here with my family a bunch on our way to Mont Tremblant to go into ski. So it's nice to be back in a professional standpoint this time.
It is. Now, you're from Toronto, correct?
I am.
Oh, there you go. So we'll talk hockey later, but let us get over here to.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't. Yeah, it doesn't look good. But let's get into We Will Rock You. This obviously this great Queen musical. Talk to me for you about getting this role and what made it so enticing, because there are so many rock bands out there over the years, but none of them really translate to a sort of a Broadway musical kind of presentation. You know, nobody's really going to go see the Sex Pistols live on Broadway. So talk to me about having this band and this music and bringing it to the stage.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. I think Queen's music is so naturally theatrical, and Freddie Mercury was so theatrical too, that it really lends itself to telling a story. And because all of their songs are so different and their sound is so different as well too, it allows for characters to be created, and because there's such a specific identity in all of their different songs. And yeah, I mean, I've loved this musical since I first saw it 12 years ago and fell in love with it then. So to be a part of it now, it's incredibly epic, and we're seeing that every time we perform it. Our audiences are loving it as well, thanks to Queen.
Yeah, you gotta love Queen. Now, the music of Queen is vocally challenging for somebody who's not up to speed. I mean, Freddie Mercury was sort of apart from others, but you're not doing one show every 3 days or one show every 2 weeks. It is on and on and on. It's every sort of day. Talk to me about sort of keeping your vocals clear and ready for this, because it's got to be somewhat exhausting.
You know what? It is. It definitely is. I'm very lucky that I did buy this soundtrack 12 years ago, because I think my foundation of how I learned how to sing was thanks to the We Will Rock You soundtrack and to Queen. So I've always been kind of training myself to be able to sing up in that upper register. But yeah, I think that now we've done more than 110 shows. I think you also learn, you're doing it 6 to 8 times a week. You learn how to do shows when you're healthfully at your vocal best, and that maybe some days when you have a cold or that you're not at your best, you find ways to make it work. And I have really found that vocal challenge has been one of the most inspiring things about doing this too, because it makes every show different, and it's pushing me as a performer. And I really do think my vocal stamina has improved greatly because of this music. And regardless of how you do it, the people who want to hear Queen's music, they're going to hear Queen's music and they're going to love it. And that's a really encouraging part.
It really is. So, all right. So talk to me about yourself a little bit here, because, you know, a lot of people, we grow up and we say, we're going to be rock stars and we're going to go out and be, you know, we're going to tour arenas and eventually stadiums. Is that sort of the fantasy you had as well, that you wanted to go be Trevor the rock star or Trevor the artist, or the pop star? And you got to Broadway, or were you always like, hey, you know what? Broadway's kind of cool.
You know what? Yeah, growing up, definitely. I looked up a lot to my older sister who was a dancer, but at the time I was also playing soccer and hockey too. But I ended up following her to an arts high school for a singing program there. And that was my introduction to like, hey, this is kind of fun and maybe I could do this. And I was surrounded by all these people who were already working professionally. A lot of people in my school were like on Degrassi and working in theater in Toronto. And I never even kind of thought I was in the same league as them. So I think that humility was probably part of the push too, being very open-minded to going into this, but being like, I don't know how achievable it actually is, but I've never given up. And just last weekend, I got to perform what my actual dream was just to be in a professional musical in general in Toronto. But because I fell in love with this show over a decade ago, being in this role, like my actual dream role, performing in Toronto, I had hundreds of people there in Toronto that got to see me living my dream, and they're the people who shaped who I am. So it was a really epic weekend after doing the show 100 times to actually have all the people who have watched your journey be there was really, really special. So you asking that question is just it's the first time I've been able to talk about that. And it's really quite touching.
I can imagine that it's got to be. So I'm going to ask you this. I was talking to Jim Vallance, who wrote all those songs with Bryan Adams years ago, and he's now writing Pretty Woman for Broadway and did the tour, the whole thing. It was a spectacular experience for myself to sort of stand on a Broadway stage and go, holy, and I was just visiting with Jim. But he said that writing for Broadway was the hardest thing he's ever done, and he'll never do it again because it's just impossible. How is it for you as a performer? Is it as easy as being on a TV show or as being in a movie, or is Broadway its own unique beast and it's just incredibly difficult to be in character and on point all the time?
I think that live performance, there is a different type of definitely stamina to it, but you have to have a different type of emotional, maturity in able
Right.
to be able to do it for so long. You need to dive in every day. You can't have an off day, especially not for this role. You can't be bad ever, And it's really good because it has pushed me a lot. But you have to give your whole heart every single time you do it. And then you have to do it again the next night and the next night and the next night. So it's definitely hard, and it's hard because there's also people that are critics too. I think that's probably half the reason that live performance is difficult, because you have audiences there who love theater and they leave with having their opinion. And the one really good thing about this show, amongst many, but one of the really great things is that Queen is the heart of this show. So regardless of whatever theatrical things that people's opinions are in terms of like the theatrical experience, which overall really have been good, people are walking away loving Queen and loving the music, loving the story, and just and loving us paying homage to a band that has such a huge impact on all these different generations. So it has been really special, but definitely being on stage is a totally different medium than being on TV and film.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this, because you're talking about bringing it to the audiences. Queen fans in general, for the most part, are a little bit older these days. They're in the 50s and 60s, and some of them are even in their 70s. I'm assuming they're coming to the shows, but at the same time, I'm assuming all younger audiences are coming as well. Some discovering the music, some just want to see a Broadway play. Talk to me about connecting with the audience and gapping those generations and saying, okay, listen, yes, it's an older generation music, but this is a fresh new show.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. This show is, because of Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, coming out last year, there was just this resurgence for Queen. And we definitely have all of those that span of ages that are coming out. But I've actually loved, especially, you can see the front few rows at the end of the show when we sing "We Are the Champions, We Will Rock You" and Bohemian Rhapsody. We have like the people who loved Queen from the beginning sing along, and then people who are as young as like 6 years old singing along as well. And it does make me emotional. It makes me look back to when I was that young watching musicals as well too, and seeing the impact that these songs are having on you, whether it's nostalgia or whether it's the first time you're ever hearing these songs. And there's something powerful about that. And there's something powerful about live performance too. I think that we're in a time where people are so connected to social media, and to kind of just living in their own lives and experiencing art as an individual, as opposed to in a group setting like theater does, when you're sharing a moment with an audience, part of the audience, and being able to do like one of the original forms of entertainment in 2020. I think that's just really epic in itself.
It really is. It really is. And, listen, I love Broadway plays. I've seen a bunch in my life, and it's such great entertainment. Where do we go from here for you? Do you want to just sort of do We Will Rock You for the next 5-10 years? Are you looking to get into Pretty Woman with Jim Valance? Or is it like, hey, I'm going to go to Hollywood and play people?
Oh, my gosh. Well, this role is a very special one for me. So if I could keep playing this role forever, that would be really fun. My voice might tell me otherwise, but I would love to keep being a part of it. But I think that it's going to be nice once this leg of the tour wraps up in a couple weeks to embrace it. It's because it's been such a nonstop process. I haven't had the time until really last weekend to be like, wow, this has been such an amazing and monumental experience. So I'm going to take it in, but you never know what's going to happen. I wouldn't have thought 5 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And I think that it's kind of taught me that anything is possible. So I'm going to keep all the doors open and keep my mind excited for what's next.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And of course, the tour runs for another couple of weeks. Trevor, an absolute pleasure. And hopefully tomorrow I will be out at the show and see you. I've got to talk to your publicist about that. But as we say,
well, we would love that.
Yes. So as we say here, merci. Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. And I'm very much looking forward to the show.
Merci. Have a good one, okay? Thank you for having me.
You too. Bonsoir. Good day. Have a good day. Bye-bye now.
Ever wonder what Vince Neil would sound like if he was a black belt in Taekwondo? What about what his favorite McDonald's menu item is? Just hold the pickles. This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
And I, of course, did see We Will Rock You in Montreal, and the show was spectacular. It took my daughter, and she even loved it. So it what do you call it? Bridged the generations. It bridged the gap between the generations. Last night in Lac Lemay, Quebec, I saw Orchestra, which is a Kiss tribute with an orchestra built around it, doing all kinds of great songs. They did Shandy, they did Every Time I Look at You, A World Without Heroes, Love Gun, Deuce, all the big hits as well. If you want to see what that looks like, go to my Twitter, at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. Go to my Twitter, at Mitch Lafon. And I posted a bunch of clips, all from February 21st. So depending on when you listen to this, scroll back to February 21st, 2020, and check that out. And let us get right over here to Joey Dandeneau of the band Theory, formerly known as Theory of a Deadman. Their new album is Say Nothing. Well, and that wouldn't really work for an interview if he said nothing. So let's listen to Joey say something. Here's Joey Dandeneau. We're speaking with drummer Joey Dandeneau of the band Theory, known also to fans as Theory of a Deadman. As we say in Montreal, Joey, bonjour. How are you?
I am good. I would say hello back in French, but I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, well, all you have to do is say hello with a little bit of a French accent. Just go hello, and then you're covered. But boy,
hello.
Hello, yeah, I know. So let me get started with this. I haven't interviewed anybody from Theory since 2005. I'm good friends with Brent Fitz, who was the drummer on that Gasoline album, and we would hang out on the tour bus, and we did all kinds of interviews. And then Brent left and went off and did the stuff with Slash. So it's nice to finally get back talking to the guys in Theory. So it's a great sort of reunion for me and the band. It's exciting. Let's get started on this new album, the Say Nothing album, which will be out at the end of the month. Talk to me about sort of the lyrical vision on this one. It seems that we're going more in depth, more into, and you know, media reports are darker side and stuff, but is it just more diving into the realities of life?
Yeah, that's actually exactly right. When we say dark, we say that because the reality of all this stuff is dark. And the second thing is the fact that a lot of our records before before this one coming out and the last one, Wake Up Call, they had a lot of comical, lyrics, tongue-in-cheek stuff, breakup stuff, relationship, love, hate, all this stuff, parties, things like that. So it was just a lot lighter. And now when that's why we kind of say it's darker. But you're right. It is about just basically what's really going on in the dark side of the world right now. So we're basically talking about it in an aspect that we're not leaning towards any specific side. We're basically talking in just making things more, making it more aware for people to be aware of, kind of what's going on, whether they know about it or not, whether they experienced personally some of the issues we talk about. Maybe they know somebody that has gone through it, things like that.
Yeah, so talk to me also a little bit about the sort of the rebranding of the band. It's been Theory of a Deadman for many years. The last album, Wake Up Call, and this one, you're going with sort of just the one name or the one word moniker, Theory, but not so much just changing the name. You're also sort of changing the sound, or at least that's the way I see it, sort of less guitar-driven, less rock-driven, more towards, and I know some people consider it a dirty word, but more towards sort of a pop sort of sensibility, if you want. Talk to me about sort of the both things, about rebranding the band name, but also sort of changing sort of the musical vision.
Yeah, so the rebranding of the name, came kind of just because over time people would say, oh, so what's, they'd meet us for the first time, or somebody didn't know who we were, and we would say, well, we're Theory of a Deadman. They'd say, Theory of a who? Theory of a what? And we're like, of a dead man. And then the first thing that would usually come to my attention, and every one of us in the band kind of has our own version of this story. But for me, it was basically, they were like, oh, Dead Man, you guys must be like metal or black metal or something. I'm like, I started laughing. I'm like, no, it's complete opposite actually. We're rock, but we're not death metal by any means. It's just, I think of the Dead Man, it would kind of freak people out, or they just didn't understand it. So that was kind of the first realization that, of a Dead Man seemed to confuse people. And then the second thing about that was a lot of our current fans would just call us Theory anyway, right? They just be like, oh, Theory's in town, or,
yep.
So we
I did it.
Why don't we just make it exactly? So there you go. So why don't we just make it easier on everybody and just rebrand? Now, we're not getting rid of a Deadman. It's, people still know us as that. People call us that. Sometimes we'll use the term or the name, but we're rebranding in a sense that we're basically we just kind of want to be called Theory, so that it just makes it easy for everybody, including the industry, right? So because we are leaning, like you said, towards more of a pop direction or alternative rock version direction, those radio stations that may not want to play us because of that name now don't have that excuse, right? So it kind of it makes it easy for everything.
I fully agree. And listen, I remember when Brent Fitz, the former drummer, called me and said, hey, I'm joining this band, Theory of a Deadman. I thought, like you're saying, oh, great, he's joined like a Norwegian black metal band. This is fantastic. Well, I don't know what he's doing. But, okay, so let me ask you about that, because the band's been around for a lot of years. And do you think the name hurt you? I mean, should you, instead of playing the M Telus in Montreal, be playing the Bell Center, and somewhere along the line the name hindered the progress, where you said like radio stations or iHearts or whatever just went, ooh, we can't play anything that's a Dead Man. It's not user friendly or soccer mom friendly.
Yeah, so it's a loaded question, and
yes.
The reason why I say that is because everybody has an opinion about this, and I've heard it a lot, and the band ourselves have discussed this as well. So the question really is, why isn't Theory of a Deadman bigger than they are? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to ask that right after, but okay, because I was going to, yes, I was going to ask that, but I was also going to ask, what does it take to get to that next level? Like, you know, you look at a Metallica and you look at those bands that are U2s that play stadiums and arenas, and bands these days, it's almost as if arena rock doesn't exist. There's some kind of magical ingredient that we just can't get there anymore. And what is sort of, I don't want to say missing from a Theory, because I don't want to be insulting, but why aren't we at the Bell Center? Where is that next step? What has hindered that progress? And please don't be insulted by the question.
No, I'm actually really not. I was kind of hoping you had an answer for me, because we've been trying to figure this one out for a while on the basis of the fact that, yeah, you aren't the first person to ask this question. So, okay, let me answer the first part of that question. Do I think the name has hindered us, to be in the Bell Center and whatnot? Honestly, I don't know that the name itself was the only little issue of why we aren't bigger. I think there's more to it. Because I look at bands that are like us in Canada, that they aren't playing it either. They aren't getting to that level either. So, no, I don't think it's the name that's hindered us. I think it is definitely hindered us in the fact that some of the stations won't play us. But I don't know that that's going to make the difference of us jumping from doing a club to an arena. I think, like you said, there's some kind of weird thing going on, and I don't know what it is that's creating I think a total blanket hindrance over rock music to be played in arenas, and that there's not enough people want to go see rock bands where they're drawing enough to put us in an arena. The rock scene in Canada specifically has changed drastically, I think, more than even America or the rest of the world. I think Canada is the worst. And I mean, no offense to the country. I'm from Canada. All four of us are from Canada. So I love my home country, don't get me wrong, but the change has happened, and it's a very different change. Now, why? I don't actually have an answer for. I don't know what happened to the culture in Canada, at least in the rock scene. So I really just don't know why. And you know what? Nobody really knows why. And we've talked to our labels and managers and agents and lawyers and you name it, and nobody can seem to put their finger directly on the problem. It's a mix of things. So if you have any suggestions, please feel free to send them our way.
Well, it's funny because I actually had a long conversation with the guys of Buck Cherry about this. But yeah, there's a lot of theories and there's a lot of sort of conspiracy theories for me. I think the era of arena rock and stadium rock, I think once the Billy Joels and the U2s and the Madonnas and the Metallicas retire, I don't think that those venues are really going to be accessible to bands anymore. It just seems as though fans are happy to sit in front of YouTube and stream Theory playing at the M-Telus, and 2,000 will go to the show and 200,000 will sit in their living room and go, look at that. They're playing a song from Say Nothing. It looks great. I don't need to move. And I think we're just sort of getting into that cocooning kind of thing. And also, one of my friends works at Jeremy White. He works at the Beat in Montreal, which is the hot AC and all that. And they literally have meetings where they play songs. And if it doesn't make it out of the meeting where, 3 people don't vote for it, it just doesn't get played. And a lot of the rock stuff just never gets played because it just never gets the votes. And so it makes it incredibly difficult to find space on the radio, you know what I mean? And also, when you listen to a Sirius XM, for example, they do 8-hour blocks and then repeat it 3 times in the day. So there's no midnight slot to discover a new band. There's no, 4 a.m. radio guy playing the underground stuff or the cool and so it's just very sanitized. And there's just no room. They just don't make room for bands, unfortunately.
I have to agree with absolutely everything you just said. Coming from the whole YouTube phase, I think that is pretty accurate. I'm not sure that I've actually heard anybody mention that, but I think you're bang on the money for that. And you're right. The whole radio game is changed drastically too. So
well, it has.
We battle that as well.
Think about it. I'm a little older, and so you go back to the 70s and 80s. You had your morning shows and you had your afternoon drives, but then, from like 8 o'clock at night to like 3 or more in the morning, you had the wacky DJ that just played all this other stuff. And you could sit around and discover Kiss, and you could discover Alice Cooper, and you could discover whatever, David Bowie or whoever was sort of on the fringe. But now, what you're hearing at 6 o'clock in the morning is being repeated 8 hours later, and then 8 hours later again. So there's no cool slot anymore. There's no cool guy anymore. There's no like, hey man, you've heard the new whatever U2 and you've heard the new whatever, Jason Mraz, but now let's play Theory. They don't have room for that anymore. And it's devastating to what it does. I mean, ultimately what you need to do is just tour and tour and tour and tour and tour until you drop dead. But dropping dead's not a great solution.
Which is what we do.
Right, and dropping dead's not a great solution.
It sucks. I don't want that to happen.
Well, okay, so
I enjoy living.
Let me ask you.
It's true though. We do. We tour our butts off, and we get burnt out because of it. We just literally burn out, and we have to take half a year off after a record cycle because we can barely breathe. Like we're just so tired.
Yeah, I know. It's awful. So let me ask you about that then. How important then is it for you to tour? Because we all know that, the old days you made an album and you toured the album. Now you essentially do the opposite. You make the tour to sort of get to the album, and if you're not touring, you're not selling merch, and if you're not selling merch, you're not surviving. So how important for you is it to get out there and be on the road and get the songs in the live venues and also get the merch out the door, because it is an essential part of being a touring rock band?
Yeah, touring is all we do because that's how you make money. You're right. Now, if you're a songwriter, with the way streaming is happening now, artists are getting paid a little bit more money again since that 44% increase happened when that law passed. And I think it's still being looked at. It's an arbitration or something. But anyway, we're getting paid an extra 44% on our royalties. So as a songwriter, we see a little bit of help with that because streaming is the new radio, I guess. But at the end of the day, you have to tour to make sure the band is happy, and because not everybody in the band is a songwriter. So if there's one guy or two guys, then they get paid, but the other two guys are living in a box, and you're like, well, that's not right. So you got to go out. Merch, big thing. It's the new. I think we are in the clothing business. We tour to sell clothes almost at this point. But unfortunately, in order to get to where we are and continue what we're doing, there is unfortunately a massive amount of people in the kitchen, and they all have their hands out. And they all want a piece of that. So at the end of the day, our merch numbers are good, but a lot of times we're not really making the money we want to make off merch for profit. For us, it's more important about making sure our prices are a bit lower so that we can get more shirts out there, not for our benefit of profit, but for making our band name,
right.
People walking around with our band name on their shirt, that's what's really important nowadays.
I mean,
if we see a little bit of money in the end of it, that's nice, but that's a bonus. Just because, like I said, a lot of people have their hands out in our company, so we have to pay these people. Some work very hard to make this happen for us. Some work very little hours and make a lot of money off us, but I guess that's just how it goes. So, like I said, at the end of the day, what's most important is making sure people are wearing our stuff and wearing it out. If they wear it, I don't care if they wear it in their house, but as long as they're wearing it, they're seeing it on themselves. They see it in the mirror. They think of the band, right? So if I want to listen to them today. and all of a sudden they start streaming our stuff, and that's where, you know, it all kind of works into a little circle there. And then they go, oh, you guys are coming into town. You know what? Maybe I want to go see them because we're just on their minds, right? So that's the importance of merch for us.
Oh, it is, and folks don't seem to understand sometimes that it's a walking billboard. And I know, like, you know, Slayer got all over the Kardashians for wearing a shirt, but it's like, hey, if a Kardashian wants to wear a Theory shirt, you know, send them 2 more because it's actually good, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, unfortunately, they, you know, I mean, it depends who you're talking to. Some people think that they're the greatest people in the world, and they believe everything the Kardashians do and say is right, and some people in the world think they're a joke. But at the end of the day, they, regardless of how you feel about them, they are extremely popular in our culture, at least in America, North America. And if they are wearing something, people are going to see it. So,
yep. Listen, if Taylor Swift wears a Theory shirt, it ain't going to hurt. You know, let's put it that way. Let me ask you this, because
well, honestly, I think Taylor Swift is pretty cool. So if she wants to wear a shirt, I'll definitely send her 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm not a fan of her music, but I ultimately respect what she does because she's brilliant. I mean, look where she's gotten in such a. Anyway, we're not here to talk about her.
Well, I'm with you.
But let me ask you this: you just said that a couple of the guys are songwriters and a couple aren't, and this might be maybe too much business oriented, but is an equal share, an equal partnership not the best sort of way to go? Because I was very heavy in some of the 80s rock band sites, and I would see, you know, the main songwriter go off and be driving a Lamborghini, and then the other guy was driving a broken down Datsun, and then you go, oh, hey, the band's broke up because they hate each other. It's like, well, yeah, if I'm driving a broken down Datsun and the dude next to me has 3 pools and a Lamborghini, I'm going to be a little fucking pissed. Excuse the language, but is that something you're aware of in the band? And is that something that you strive to sort of have a more 25, 25, 25 kind of share?
Well, I can't speak for every band, but I think the smart way of doing that is okay. So I'm not going to, go into detail of the way we do business in our band, but I'll give you an idea here is that, I think the smart way is so to give you an idea, the 4 of us are equal share partners of the band. So there's 4 of us, we're all quarter members. So everything we do on the road, we split 4 ways. So we all get that cut. But if there is somebody in the band that writes the song, we all agree that guy, whoever it may be, needs to be compensated for that. Because if he didn't write that song that turned into a hit, would we have had a hit? Probably not. So he needs to be compensated. So that's his bonus, right? He did a good job. He gets the bonus of the extra work he did to make that happen. But now, because of his extra hard work he did, the rest of us can now go out and tour and split the touring money that we all made together to go out and perform that song or that show or whatever, right? So I think that's the best way. It keeps everybody happy. Everybody gets paid. And the more work you do, the more bonuses you get, basically.
All right. I would take you up on that, but we should probably move along. But I just think of a song like Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith, and you go, yeah, okay, Joe wrote this, and Steven wrote the lyrics. But if you don't hear that dun, dun, by Tom Hamilton, is it the same song? So I think when you add the parts, I think you've got... Anyway, I think everybody's a songwriter who adds to it. But let me quick get over here to producer Martin.
Well, but they can give you... but here real quick, they can give you... That person who wrote the song can also, on his own... and on his own decision, can give the rest of the band a little bit of royalty because they put in their parts like that. So and I'll give you, to be an example, we actually do that. So whoever writes the song usually will give a little bit of writing credits. It's not going to be a ton. They're gonna get what they incorporated into the song. So like, for example, Aerosmith bass player gave you that bass line that is undeniable. He got paid for that. I guarantee it. He may not have gotten songwriting credits at 100%, but I certainly believe he would have gotten something for it, and I'm sure his bank account shows it.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I don't think they're suffering. All right, so let me get over to Martin, and I say Tarif. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's produced Wake Up Call and, of course, Say Nothing. But he's, of course, worked with Jason Mraz, KT Tunstall, which is the name of the street that I live on, actually. But talk to me about using. I actually live on Tunstall Avenue. But talk to me about working with a producer like Martin, who comes from that, Swedish rock, Swedish, European sort of vision of music. And, he's not working with artists that people would necessarily associate with Theory of a Deadman, or Theory. What does he bring, and how important is he to the sound?
Okay, answer first question. Terefi is how you pronounce it. Now, Martin is, he is definitely a pop producer. He's not a rock, it's certainly not a heavy rock, but he's not really a rock producer. He decided to work with us because, to be honest, when we did Wake Up Call, he thought we wanted to do another rock record like we've always done, and he's never really done one before. So we decided we used to use Howard Benson for all our records, and minus the first one, and we needed a change. So we went with Martin because we were like, we want to go in a different direction. Well, when we got to London to do the record, he's like, all right, let's make a rock record. And we're like, no. We want to make like an alternative record. We want to go your direction. That's why we're here. And he's like, oh. So he was almost disappointed. I guess there was a miscommunication. Because I guess the demos we sent him were a little bit more in the rock world, because it was the first time we ever kind of tried to make a sonic direction change. So our demos were still kind of rocky. So that's kind of what he thought we were going to do. And then we're like, no, that was how we kind of got our opinions and our direction to you. But now we want to change this and make it your style. So we started working with him, and he blew our minds in the sense that the way he makes music is so organic and old school. It was like going back to when we were kids. It was insane. We have been so used to this super straight, strict method of making music and recording music in the studio with Howard Benson that he was just the opposite. He's like, let's just jam. Let's just jam live in the studio, all of us. And he's a piano player, bass player, guitar, but he's very musical, very talented. So he would, start playing piano with us, and we would just jam these songs. He didn't want us to rehearse coming into it. Nothing. He's like, I just want you guys to be open-minded, unrehearsed, and let's just see what happens. And some days we would work on a song for half an hour, and then he'd go, hey, you know what? I had this idea last night. I want to work on this song now. And we just up and change the entire song, and we start a new template and make a new song. And we would bounce back and forth for 7 weeks until the record was done. So every day somebody had this cool idea of, oh, wow, I didn't think about doing this yesterday, but now that I think, I went home and I thought about what we just did in the studio, and I come up with this really cool idea. And all of a sudden we try something, and some weird happy mistake would happen, and then that would be the end result of the song. And we'd go, wow, if we didn't do this, none of these cool ideas would have come up, and we would have just had, drums first, guitar second, bass third, vocals fourth, and we're done, right? And none of that happened, and it was just like the craziest thing. So we made this first record with him, and we were just literally blown away how exciting it was to go to the studio every day, because you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know what we were going to come up with. We had no idea what the song was going to sound like. So there was this incredible excitement every day, but it was terrifying at the same time because it was so different, right? And a lot of people aren't good with change. Some people are very bad with change. So when there was a drastic change happening to all four of us at the same time, there was nights for me that it was sleepless. I would stay up all night thinking about this. Are we doing the right thing? Are we making the right moves? Are we making this new sound? Is it right? Are we even doing it right? Do we know what we're doing? All these thoughts that go through your head. But then there's these exciting thoughts too that you're going, wow, this is so crazy. I've never done this before. I don't know. So you get to it was like the highs and lows all at the same time. So because of the success of the first record and the way it turned out when we were done, we had no choice. And it was like literally the consensus of the band was to the point where we we knew when we wanted to make our 7th record, we already knew we were gonna call Martin back. We're like, no, we have to do this again. It was just so organic and so much fun. And he has this, old school Swedish, like you said, European background. So the way he grew up in his culture, he's so relaxed and so friendly and so open-minded. And man, it was such a treat to work with him every day. And he has this really cool accent, and he has this really cool dog, and bring the dog. But the vibe in the room was just so relaxed and chill that it's almost like I want everybody to experience working with Martin at least once in their life, just to experience how he does music, because it's incredible.
Yeah, that whole Swedish thing is amazing. Now, of course, you mentioned Howard, and he's worked with friends of mine, Seether and Bang Tango. Can't forget Bang Tango. Do you see yourself sort of like Def Leppard and Mutt Lange, where at some point you just go, okay, we've had enough? Or in 5 years, 10 years, you go, hey, you know what? We made some really good albums with Howard. Let's give him a call and let's see if the magic's still there. Like, how do you sort of see the future? Because, like you said, he was there for all the other albums. Is he? We've been there, done that, or we'll see in 10 years.
No, that's hard to say, because you're right. We made some fantastic records with Howard, and he's a great producer. He knows what he's doing. I'm not, when I say that he had a method, I mean, I wasn't dogging on it. It was just, that's how he makes it. But like I said, we made some fantastic music with him. Do you know what's in the future? I mean, does anybody know? I don't know. Is there a possibility that we can work with Howard again? Sure. I mean, we're still friends with him. We still talk to him. I mean, I follow him. We follow each other on Instagram. It's like, there's no bad blood or anything. He understands the change we made, and we still talk. So yeah, certainly there's a chance we could go back in 5 or 10 years and say, Howard, let's make another record. Let's see if we got it. Or what have you done lately that's different? Let's try what your new method. I mean, he must, he learns as he goes, as we do too, and like anybody. I don't think that the door is completely shut on Howard. I think we just, now.
No, you got to that point. I mean, we
said goodbye because we had to make a change, and yeah, certainly Howard's still in the mix potentially.
Yeah, I mean, bands and producers get to a point sometimes where it's just good to. It doesn't mean anything nefarious. It just means, hey, we're done. We need to move on. But Martin has certainly, and I guess for me the word would be he's made this sound very slick, and I like that. I like that nice produced sound and stuff. Just real quick, because I see we're at 30 minutes, and that was our time. But Neil Peart, obviously of Rush, passed away earlier this month. He was, of course, one of the greatest drummers. Do you have any words on Neil? Were you a fan of Rush? I mean, I know it's sort of, to say you're a Canadian drummer, you have to be a fan, but were you? What do you think of Neil, and any words on his passing? Okay,
yeah. Well, so first off, I mean, when Rush was out, I was very, very young. So I grew up listening to them on the radio, but I wasn't like a super fan of Rush. And like you said, like, just because I'm Canadian doesn't mean I have to be a super fan. Now, that being said, because I wasn't a super fan, I didn't spend all my years like drummers that I know that are older than me spent, countless hours, practicing his fills and his songs that they did. But I never did that. But I had a huge amount of respect for him, only because, not because he was Canadian, not because they were so popular, but he had a drumming style that I don't have. And it was a drumming style that I still to this day wish I had. And so he was a mathematical drummer. His time signatures were epic. And the way he would play his parts around these time signatures are, well, I mean, that's what I mean, epic. Like, there's not a lot of guys that do that and do it that well. And that's why I think he was noted as one of the best drummers around, because he was able to do what most people can't. his brain worked at a level that a lot of people's don't. His functioned at such a high level, and I called him a mathematician. I'm not good at time signatures. I'm a 4 on the floor, 4/4 kind of rock guy, straight ahead, pocket kind of drummer, and you know, he was far advanced than me. So
way beyond.
Yeah, same respect. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, just way beyond. And I was just going to say, if you really want to appreciate Neil, don't watch the Rush stuff. Go to YouTube and watch when he does a Buddy Rich tribute or he does some jazz stuff, and you go, "Oh my God, the guy that does Tom Sawyer can do these." And then you go, "Ah,
yeah."
And that's when sort of the genius gets revealed, when you go, because if you can take a lot of the how can I put it this way? I don't think Lars Ulrich is going to be doing Buddy Rich, whereas you look at Neil do it and you go, "Wow,
No.
that's pretty effing impressive. Good job." You know?
He was a true drummer, like drummer of drummers. And it's funny you mentioned Buddy Rich, because one of the like I said, because I was a little younger, I wasn't listening to them that much as far as Rush was concerned. So one of the times when I actually spent more time and getting to know who Neil Peart was not from Rush. It was actually from a CD that my brother bought me when I was a kid, and the CD was called Burning for Buddy. And it was a bunch of drummers. I'm sure you know what it is. A bunch of drummers.
Yeah, it's a tribute album that Neil's on.
To play his songs, right? And so Neil was on that, and that's kind of where I actually spent more time learning about Neil Peart than Rush, to be honest with you. And then after that was when I started to go, oh, okay, so this drummer, the Rush, okay, now it's all coming together. And as I grew, older every year, and all of a sudden I became, more of a rock drummer, and that's when it all started to come to really understanding who Neil Peart was as a drummer. And that's when I started to go, wow, I like the Rush hits. I don't listen to their stuff front to back, but their hits were magnificent as a band, and his parts were epic because they were perfect. They were so unique, and when you hear them, you know exactly who it is. There's no guessing ever, and you know who it is. So I have nothing but major respect for who he was as a person, and for his drumming and what he did for the music community total. And then on top of that, to finish it off, when I found out I didn't know, I just found out like the day that he passed, what he had passed away from. And not to go too deep here, but it kind of touched home for me, because I felt even more sadness, because a couple of years ago, my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Fortunately, she's here today, alive and well, and we were able to beat that. And so when he didn't make it, I was literally in my house reading the article, and just sick to my stomach about it, because he wasn't able to make it. And so it kind of touched home for me, the way he died. And so I'm always, I think there's going to be now, just because of this as well, I think there's going to be this weird, dark thing with my thought process when Neil Peart comes to mind now. And I think I'm always going to carry that now with me. And I think it's something I'll never forget. And he's now touched me in a way that I can't really express any more than that. So it's this weird feeling now that I didn't used to have, but now I have. So again, that Neil Peart, man, that guy, just kudos to that guy, and may he rest in peace, because
absolutely
he was a beast.
He was
the boss.
And listen, I could ask you more questions, but I'm going to leave it at that, because I don't think we should go further than we'll leave it on that thought. But first of all, my thought to your mom, let's hope that she keeps going for another 25, 50 years. And yeah, and as far as Neil goes and his condition or what he died of, nobody knew. He didn't do interviews about it. They didn't put out a press release about it. And some fans are upset that they didn't know, but I respect the privacy, and I respect the fact that he wanted to do this just with his family. And, may he rest in peace, like you said. And again, I'm so incredibly glad that your mom fought it and beat it. That's great news, right? So
it's fantastic. I don't have words to describe the excitement that my family has today. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good, absolutely. And just real quick, the new album "Say Nothing" is January 31st. The tour at the Commodore Ballroom, the legendary Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver, January 31st, running all the way to February 29th. That's right. There is a 29th this year in Barrie at Mavericks. And you are here in Montreal on February 28th, a Friday, which means you have no excuse to not go at the MTELUS, which I don't know. Well, you've played it before. What a great venue, man. That venue sounds fucking fantastic. So it does.
Yeah, I love that venue. When we saw that it was available and we could do it, we're like, please take it. Please get that venue.
Get that venue, and I'll be more than happy to come out and check out the band and support the band. And Joey, thanks. Thank you for your time. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, you know what? It's my pleasure. I love talking music, drumming, all this stuff. So thanks for having me on your show. I super appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we went down some paths that were very different than the normal. Tell me about the album. Like we got into some deep stuff, which I thought was great. So that is fantastic. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
This has been Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. For more exclusive content and interviews, subscribe on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and many more. Follow Mitch on all the socials, especially Twitter, @Mitch Lafon, and on Instagram, @Mitch_Lafon. Get your Mitch merch now at loudtracks.com/Mitch.